Joining me this morning from our good friends at the Wisconsin Institute for Law and Liberty, attorney Lauren Greuel. Good morning, Lauren. How are you?
Good morning, Meg. I'm good. How are you?
Very good, thanks. Okay, so I'll just come right out and ask you. Did I mispronounce your last name?
Greuel, but it was very
Greuel. Oh,
close.
well, yeah. I'm gonna make a point to remember that in the future. Okay, so it's Lauren, not spelled as it sounds. However, it is Greuel. The last time you were on, we chatted about, well, I guess Wisconsin Institute for Law and Liberty had to file a lawsuit in order to, maybe it wasn't a lawsuit, but yeah, I guess it was a lawsuit on behalf of a Milwaukee mom who was very concerned about the safety and security of her children in the Milwaukee public schools. And, we are talking about the adults that are in charge in the Milwaukee public schools and their unwillingness to adhere to the law and actually be held accountable if they're not.
Yeah, yeah, yep. And it was a lawsuit. We filed a lawsuit back in October. We were asking for the remedy to be an alternative writ of mandamus, which is a fancy legal way of saying we wanted the court to compel public officials to do what they're legally required to do by statute in Wisconsin.
So, and I asked you this off air, do you have any confidence that they're finally going to now in this recent ruling by the judge in Milwaukee that they will adhere to what they were ordered to do?
That's a great question. That is a great question. I mean, I think so. Just a little bit more background. So we filed this lawsuit. We asked for an alternative writ of mandamus. Then in January 23rd, we went in for a hearing, and the judge granted our alternative writ of mandamus and denied the school district's motion to dismiss because they were trying to dismiss this lawsuit. And he gave them until February 17th to work with the city to get school resource officers back in schools. Then on February 17th, we go in, and it was the same story that we've been hearing since this law was passed, which is we're working on it, we're working with the city, we can't agree on a cost. And it was more of the same negotiation problems over and over. So the judge ordered, okay, fine, I'm going to solve this debate for you then, and you're going to split the cost 50-50, and you have until next Thursday, so this Thursday, February 27th, to do it. Then last Thursday, the Milwaukee Board of School Directors met in a special meeting and came back and voted to appropriate the costs necessary to cover the SROs. But they started the meeting off with the same phrase that we've been hearing them say over and over, like, we stand ready to put SROs in schools as soon as they become available. And that phrase that we're hearing over and over again from MPS and the way that they're dragging their feet, they're filing motions to dismiss this lawsuit, they're arguing with the city. They didn't want to split it 50-50. I think they wanted to split it 33. They wanted to cover 33% of the salaries. I'm skeptical, but very hopeful. Skeptical that MPS is going to do the right thing, but I really do hope that school resource officers are in schools as soon as possible, because that's what this is about. It's not about money. It's about the safety of the children in Milwaukee. And parents in Milwaukee should be able to send their kids to school and feel safe doing so. It's not fair to the students, it's not fair to the staff and the parents and the community members in Milwaukee in general. And I hope MPS really does get everything together that they need to get together and get this done.
So I looked up while you were chatting with me, and I looked up the definition of writ of mandamus. And I mean, ultimately, I'll just put it into plain English for our listeners, is that ultimately they're being commanded to do something, that to do what the law tells them they should do. I mean, is that fairly accurate?
Yeah, Yeah, and in this scenario, it's the right legal remedy because we have a bunch of board directors now just sitting around saying that they don't want to follow the law. So
Like a
that's
child. I mean, it's like
yes,
a child's response. I mean, honestly, and ironic that we're talking about kids in the Milwaukee public schools.
right, absolutely. So on Thursday, though, if they don't have SROs in schools, this Thursday, the 27th, we'll be meeting to discuss why they don't have SROs in schools. Still, the judge was gracious enough after that February 17th meeting to give them another 10 days to figure it out. But if they don't, then we'll be talking about contempt of court and sanctions.
Well, and it's almost as if there's nothing that deters them. I mean, I guess I'm very cynical when it comes to holding those on the left, and this is how I perceive this to be, those on the left accountable for their actions or lack thereof. But it really seems it seems very counter to what the one of the main, I guess, what I would consider one of the main responsibilities of the school district is to ensure that their students are safe when they receive an education.
Absolutely. And I will say as well that a lot of school districts in the state of Wisconsin have SROs. So there's a lot of people whose main argument against SROs is they don't want to perpetuate the school to prison pipeline, and they're concerned that these children will be treated like criminals. But in reality, having community officers in schools is a really, really good thing for kids, especially in Milwaukee. They get to have a relationship with these officers. These officers get to know these kids. They have to go through special training in order to be able to handle juveniles. There's a lot of really positive benefits of having police officers in schools. And MPS is one of the only schools that's depriving these students of this relationship with a community officer. Because every time they call, the capable officers in Milwaukee will come to the school, but they aren't specially trained. They aren't the same officers every time. There's just it's putting these students at a disadvantage. It really is.
So I'm looking at the press release that Will put out. Per the judge, MPS is to pay 50% of the cost of the SROs. Now, is that common in other parts of the state? I mean, including, just as an example, I know I drive by a Wausau public school on my way, John Muir Middle School, on my way downtown Wausau every morning. And, well, I guess not in the morning, I don't see it, but there's always a police car in the parking lot. And I wonder, is the city of Wausau paying 50% of the salary for the SRO at the schools in Wausau?
So, from my understanding, each school district handles it differently. There isn't a state mandate saying how they have to pay for it. So some schools will pay entirely for the school resource officer. Some schools will have the police department pay entirely for the police officer. And sometimes they split it somewhere in the middle. It might not be 50-50. It might be 60-40. But, yeah, there's lots of different examples of how to handle it across the state. And my guess, although I don't know for sure, is that's why the law was written the way it was for MPS. Like, the city and MPS will agree to an apportionment of costs that works for them, but ultimately MPS didn't want to pay up to 50%. They didn't want to split it. They were giving out, 33% was the most recent offer that I've seen. So I keep bringing that number up, but it just depends on the community. And here it seems like MPS just wasn't willing to meet somewhere in the middle. They really did not want to have to pay for these school resource officers.
Well, and they're using the cost now as an excuse because, let's face it, I mean, this is more about anti-law enforcement than anything else. And, again, I'll go back to, I'm a mom. I would not want to send my kids to a school if I was fearful of their safety. I mean, I don't blame any mom or any dad, any parent, any grandparent for being concerned about it. But, I mean, this is really gone too far. Well, I applaud your organization, Wisconsin Institute for Law and Liberty, for all the work that you're doing on behalf of all of us here in Wisconsin, our freedoms and liberties. And please keep us posted. I know that you will. And
Yes.
I guess it remains to be seen if these adults will be, will start behaving like adults and acknowledge that they have to adhere to this latest order by the judge. So, well, thanks for
Yeah.
joining me this morning, Lauren Greuel. I appreciate you making the call this morning, and hope you have a wonderful day.
Yes, thanks for having me on, Meg.
Thanks. Take care. And if you're interested in Wisconsin Institute for Law and Liberty, you can go out to will-law.org.